My relationship with the ministry is probably the most abusive one I've ever had, just because of the abuse that I've been through at their hands. They have things backwards. They are tearing families apart and then giving them supports where they should be giving them supports first. My name is Theresa. I'm originally from Nova Scotia. I'm 42. I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. This is me when I was 11. Look at the hair, right? The swoop. Remember the T's and swoop? I was at Sea Cadet Camp and I got caught smoking outside the barracks with some friends. I was probably about 13 at the time. They asked why I would make that decision, and I just said basically I just don't care anymore. I don't care if I get in trouble. I don't care what happens to me. Finally it came out what happened. That's her first school drawing. Then the ministry talked to me, and then they talked to my parents. And I guess he did admit to some things, but it wasn't enough for them to actually remove me or my sister. So that was kind of heartbreaking for me to find out that he wasn't leaving. And I said, well, it's either me or him. That's where I'm at. And my mom said she wasn't leaving him. So I left. I felt freedom. It's just the fact that I wasn't kind of a prisoner in that home anymore. And the fact that he had no control over what I did, said, wore. But like, I was 13. I was still a kid. I couldn't even imagine my kids living or being on their own at that age. Like, it just couldn't even imagine. They put me in group homes for a while and things like that, where I was again mistreated, sexually abused by the hands of workers, people that worked there. You know, in and out of juvie, things like that. Like, it was bad. It was really bad. I had my daughter at 17. She got taken away from me probably when she was about 3 months, was the second kind of interaction I had with them. The judge chaperone actually said, how dare you take this child away from the mother at the most important bonding period of mother and child. And yeah, I feel that that has always been ripped away from me. That was really difficult for me to have to go through, especially at such a young age, being such a young mom. You don't really have the tools and the skills already to be a parent, and nobody's trying to help you. They're just saying, you know, if you don't do this, that, and this, we'll take your kid. And it's like, okay, well, show me, because I was never shown. Like, you know, I'm the baby myself out of the whole family, right? Like, I was the first one to have a child too. We didn't know, you know, my mom wasn't that kind of mom. Got to take a couple of hair extensions out. So I ended up getting a student loan and then applying to get into the hair program. I think I was like 19 at the time. Yeah, I've been doing this for a really long time. So it's pretty, people are like, this is like one of the hardest methods like I teach, and people are floored that I do my own. But I have my whole head mapped out pretty good, because I used to put braid extensions in my hair. That was one thing that I definitely do not regret. Even if I've done other jobs that were my solid, steady income, I could always fall back on hair. Any industry that I've ended up being in, it's taking something that's, you know, not pretty and making it just as something gorgeous. Like, it's nothing like I've ever experienced as far as making me feel like I made a difference. And it just slides out. So yeah, I just put myself through hair school and then started working right away. And I worked full time as a single parent for quite a while. I ended up meeting Mike, moved in with him quite quickly. And the reason why is because I couldn't pay the rent. And that's usually the reason why women stay in abusive relationships, to be perfectly honest with you, because they can't afford to raise a family on their own. They can't, and they need the help, and there's no supports and no money. I ended up selling, my Durango, a whole bunch of things just to kind of make ends meet, and I couldn't do it. Like, I had to move because I couldn't even afford that $1,100 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. And at the time, that's pretty cheap. So Mike and I moved in together. He has 2 kids, so blended family. And we lived pretty great for quite a few years. So, ups and downs, trials and tribulations of a blended family. It's always hard on everyone involved, kids and parents included. I started actually a Facebook group recently. Parents of children with mental health supports in BC. So just like parents getting together and talking about like their stories and their journeys. So it's spreading like wildfire, and there are a lot of parents, as I suspected, going through the exact same things that I went through, and especially when it comes to the Ministry of Children and Families getting involved too. They're not helping, they're not supporting, they're almost intimidating them, right? There are no real supports or help, there's nothing. So I figure if the parents can get together and we can support each other through this, probably be better off than, asking the ministry for help at this point, So basically I'm laid out for a couple months. A lot of the responsibility for everything else really fell on Mike. And I believe at that time it was hard for him to kind of find coping skills to cope with all the chaos of keeping a house together, dinners, making sure the kids do all their homework, making sure that everything's done and that I'm okay, and that he has a full-time job as well. And then everything fell on him, and I'm pretty sure he freaked out a bit. Actually, I'm positive that that's what happened. And so he overdosed a little while after that at home with the children. And I got a call from the paramedics and his son, and I wasn't far down the road, so I came running. I couldn't believe it at first. So I thought we would get through it, though, to be honest with you, and I was willing to get through it. But the ministry was adamant that because Mike was not the biological father, that I need to leave the situation. And we had been together at that point for about 5 years. So he had been around since they were little itty bitty kids. They told me to go into a transition home. I'd never have to cook dinner. I'd have free daycare. I wouldn't have to do anything. Basically, they'll help me with my children. They made it seem like a pretty good thing. And I'm like, maybe I do need a break. Maybe I should, And I think that they knew once they got me out of the home that they could keep me out of the home. Yeah, I need a 3-block-ish kind of radius. My son's mental health took a real turn for the worse. He was freaking out at bedtime, brush your teeth, have a shower. Anything he didn't want to do at that point in time, he would lose it, completely lose it. And I'm talking screaming and yelling at me at the top of his lungs for like 4 to 6 hours in the middle of the night. Now, at the transition houses, they're not equipped to deal with that at all.
I like to face the cars too, right?
I felt helpless in here in a place that I'm supposed to have support when this stuff goes down. So I was in there for about a month. I moved into, after that, second stage housing. And again, all the change, right, for him was really hard. I begged the ministry to, because I still had an open file, but it was more of a support file. It got to the point where I was begging them to help me, and they're like, there's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied. We've done all we can do. And all this time, I'm dealing with this by myself. So he's destroying my house, he's hitting me, he's punching me, he's hurting his sister. And afterwards, super remorseful. Like, I'm sorry, Mom, I don't know why. I don't know why I do it. I can't help it. I said, well, what's it like for you when you're in that kind of explosive rage mode? And he says, it's like you're a prisoner inside your own head. And I was just like, I knew right then and there, like, that something is not right. So I had no supports whatsoever. They took them all away. So Mike was pretty much the only one left to be any support whatsoever. Nobody would talk to me. I lost my friends. I lost my family. I lost everything. Yeah. So, and they helped make that happen, you know. Mike and I had, because he was using a lot, and I was trying to help him get off because I didn't want to see him go down that road. I had lost already way too many people due to drugs in my life, and you know, I loved him. I really did. They called my family and told them that I was using drugs, which was untrue, just because they're assumed that I was, because I was trying to help somebody, but they didn't see it that way, right? Guilty by association, basically, is what that is. So that was hard. My family hasn't talked to me since. So that's been over a year now. I tried so hard to get him off, and it just went bad every time, obviously, because of the nature of it. So there was some physical abuse that transpired, as well as lots of other things where the police would have to show up and whatnot. So him and I had a no contact order. We were caught together. I was arrested. I was thrown in cells. When I came out, the team leader at the downtown office told me that they were removing my kids. My kids were already at their grandparents' place because I was not living in second stage housing anymore, because they made me quit, like the ministry made me quit my job to better support my son throughout all this. And at first I said no. I couldn't pay my bills when I did eventually give in to them, and I lost my housing. Yeah, it was a nightmare. I feel like I was bullied constantly by this ministry. I was disrespected. I wasn't treated with respect whatsoever. I was basically only told what a bad, horrible person I was, and a parent I was, and basically that I won't be that success story. They got a program involved to supervise my visits to see how I parent. And, they basically labeled me as this parent that can't even have their children outside of the community for 3 hours a week. Yeah, I was burnt out and I needed a break, for sure. But I could have gone the other way when they took them, Like, I could have gone downhill like a lot of parents do, okay? Because they're giving me no hope at this point, like none, to ever even have them anymore. They're talking about adoption. They're talking about all these things and making plans without me. Just trying to get my children back. For 8 months, I did that. And I had to give up. It was tearing me down inside, like nothing I could ever explain. Like, I felt so shitty about myself. I wanted to take my own life. And I'm a mentally healthy woman. And so at that point, I was like, what am I going to do? You know? So I felt helpless, completely helpless, until I found a loophole.
Oh, it's just like I hadn't painted in a really, really, really long time. Like, I'm talking a few years.
I started phoning people. I started off with the Métis office, and I talked to a social worker and I told her everything. I am currently working with the Métis office, yes. It's like night and day. I can't even, I'm treated with respect. Everything is run by me. 2 months with that office and them assessing my parenting for 2 sessions, and they couldn't see anything wrong with the way I parented, with how the safety of my kids and how I keep them safe. They had no concerns whatsoever. And we have the kids back. There is a lot of injustice going on with the Ministry of Children and Family and Social Development. Like, there really is. You don't have any supports until you actually have an open file, and it's a child protection file, which is really messed up to me. What do the parents do in the meantime? They're given a phone number. You call this crisis line, and then the emergency response team will call you back. Yeah, they're great, but it's a rigmarole to have to do that, especially if you're doing it every day, which I was for a very long time. Here's him when his mental health wasn't the best.
I thought that was a cool picture because it was kind of like, it shows how fierce he is.
I am and have been healing from the trauma of the whole situation of the relationship and what transpired. And I just feel that, like, their concerns were just keeping them away from me as long as possible. It's almost like trying to break that bond. And I felt for a long time that it was broken, but I was wrong.